Gotta pick something. Hang on here. Hey, replay people. Welcome to the Beach Report. Today we're live in Fort Lauderdale at my Fort Lauderdale abode on the Intercoastal. Just waiting for my audience to show up. Happy Monday. Hi, Laura. Hi, Darla. Glad to see you guys. I've got an interesting show for you today because I would like to know why are Democrats fighting to not just keep illegal aliens in the country, but bring back the ones that have been deported. What is up with that? You know, America is a very, very special place. The United States of America is probably the most wannabe country in the world. And I say wannabe, it's because everybody wants to be an American, or everybody wants to know about Americans. And you don't realize this until you leave this country. And just by virtue of being an American, everybody wants to talk to you. You're kind of famous when you go out in the real world, in the big Europe or South America. I mean, these are places I've been. Canada. I've not really been that much to Canada. I don't remember the Canadians. Well, okay, that's not true. When I lived in Switzerland, sorry, my nose all of a sudden got really itchy. Sorry. When I lived in Switzerland, there were a lot of people there from Canada. And they were really like in awe of Americans. They tried to act cool about it, but you know, it's kind of like that relationship where you're the cool big sister and you don't realize that everybody else wants to be like you and you're just being yourself and stuff, you know you're cool, but you're not trying to flaunt it or anything. But then all of a sudden you come to this realization that, hey, everybody wants to be like you. That's kind of like what it's like to be an American in another country. Hi, Rock. Hi, Hassan. Darla woke up thinking it was a Wednesday. That happens to me always. But I always think that it's earlier. Oh, you think my teeth are like a horse? You know what? That's actually a lucky thing. I love my horse teeth. So thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud. Very proud. And I'm going to cherish these teeth for as long as I have them in my head. So thank you for noticing. Funny, again, how people always like come on, these keyboard warriors. Darla, you don't have to get rid of nasty people like that. Oh, is it another one? You can let Rock Rule stay here because I'm just going to shame him for being a loser. Whenever you make fun of people and the way that they look, things that they can't possibly, change or whatever. Thank you, sinner. Thank you. They are beautiful. They are not as healthy as I wish they could be. Look, I've already had this one removed. I've had these two back here removed. I grind my teeth. It's not good. It's not good. But I am very happy with the teeth that I still have. So I do cherish them. So I'm just, I'm going to grin as loud as I can. Oh, here's that. Oh, okay. Good job, Darla. All right. Sorry. Didn't mean to second guess you. Yes, some people come on and they're so rude. It's like, how do you live like that? What kind of a life do you have when you go on a stranger's blog and feel the need to say nasty things to that person? Like, why? What'd I ever do to you, Hey, Wayne. Oh my gosh, I know I'm waiting for part 2 to come out as well. You got that right. I am working on it, Wayne. But for those of you who waited 3 years for do you want think about me on my birthday, I hope it won't take 3 years again. It won't take 3 years again, but it's going to take a little while. So still working on it, Wayne. But thank you for asking, because yes, I'm absolutely working on my second book and some other books too. Hey, Clifford. Yes, you are always a friend. I know, criticism. It's so nasty. Who needs it? What the heck is a yazo, Laura? Tell us. Do tell us. All right, so we have some normal people on here now. What is a yazo? Yeah, everyone wants to know. I am going to jump into today's show. Oh, it's a yogurt bar. Okay, I like yogurt. I don't know about bars, though. I feel like everything that's manufactured food, how good can it be? I'm going to drink my coffee. Okay, so my new best friend is Grock. Well, best friend. I don't know, but assistant, maybe. We'll call Grock the assistant. For those of you who don't know who Grock is the AI kind of chat bot for X. Yes, darling, everyone knows you're not normal. It's okay. You know what? You're friends with me, so how normal can you be? Anyway, so I've been talking to Grock, and I find Grock to be kind of hard to deal with because he's a little bit on the liberal side, like a lot on the liberal side, which is weird because, I mean, he's like from X. You would think that he's programmed by people who are more conservative. I don't know. I don't understand it. But I found out that if you question him in the right way, you really can learn a lot from Grock. Because Grock is literally combing the internet and looking for stuff that it would take me a long time to find. So it is really helpful. So we're going to talk about this first. Now, I was asking Grock in regards to the Kilmar Garcia Abrego story. You know, that guy, the undocumented immigrant. That's what Grock calls him, undocumented immigrant. You're not wrong, Ted. Liberal sheep, definitely not good. Not good people. Anyway, okay, so he, first of all, he calls him an undocumented immigrant, which is, you know, always liberal speak for illegal alien, which is what they actually are. And they find it very annoying when they change words in order to suit how they feel. Thank you, Ted. Illegal is illegal. You broke into my country. You literally snuck in, and you were deported twice. You are an illegal alien. Okay, so that guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, you know, the one that the Democrat, was he a congressman or a senator, Hollerman or whatever his name is, who actually flew down to El Salvador to try to get this guy. Was he going to bring him back in his boat or in his, on the plane? Was he going to was he going to give him a first class ticket back home to his loving wife that he beat? Okay. Yeah, Kilmar, what a name, right? Anyway, this dude, in addition to beating his wife, which we know that he did, even though if you ask Grock about it, he'll be like, well, there were no charges filed. Oh, give me a break. She gave very explicit descriptions of the pulling of hair and the hitting at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so sorry, cry me a river, but this man was abusing his chunky little wife. Sorry to fat shame her. I'm just giving a description here. Yes, he is home in El Salvador. Exactly, he is. Anyway, in 2022, this dude was stopped by the Tennessee Highway Patrol for a traffic violation. And when they stopped him, and what was the traffic violation? Apparently, he was driving like a maniac. See, this really bothers me. The fact that this illegal alien who was unlicensed, he had an expired license. How did he even get a license in the first place, let alone it was expired? That seems kind of weird too. Anyway, he had this expired license. I wonder if it was even in his name. And he was driving, swerving, driving like a maniac. Because people who come to this country and they don't get driver's licenses, they don't take the test, they don't know how to drive. I mean, his was expired, so you would reason that he did take the test and did at one time have a driver's license, which I still find kind of iffy if he even had really a driver's license. Because when you break into this country, you have started it off not following the rules. You don't have any respect for our rules. Kilmar, driving with an expired license, which again I find kind of, I don't know about that. Anyway, if I drove with an expired license, don't you know I'm going to be in trouble? But anyway, Kilmar, the illegal alien, driving with an expired license like a maniac. Do you know how many Americans are actually hit in vehicular in accidents with illegal aliens because they can't drive, or they can't drive well, or they don't follow the rules? And the rules of the road are some of the most important rules you're going to find, because if you don't pay heed to that traffic light, that's when people get killed. You don't stop at the stop sign, that's when people get killed. You speed. He was speeding. Speeding kills people. There are rules that you follow, and there's a reason for these rules, So I don't believe on all of the rules, but definitely the rules of the road are super important, and illegal aliens don't follow those rules. And that's why so many American citizens are negatively impacted in an accident with an illegal alien. How many people on here even know somebody or yourself has been in an accident with an illegal alien? I haven't personally been in an accident with them, but my cousin was, and her car was totaled, and she got no restitution, and she had to pay for a new car, and the illegal alien, nothing happened to them. So, exactly. Because no one's above the law, right, Clifford? Hi, Holly. Except for, I guess, this dude who broke into our country, and now they're begging that he get due process. Where was the due process when he broke in? Not just once, but twice. Where's the due process? How come people are allowed to just waltz on into this country, but to get rid of them, we have to treat them with all this dignity and love and make sure they get their due process, because they're such good people who already broke our laws and proved to us that they have no respect. Now, Kilmar Abrego Garcia didn't only not have any respect for our laws, but he also had no respect for his wife. Poor Jennifer. So, we'll go back to the driving the car with the 8 people in it, who all lived at his house, by the way. And the car, by the way, was owned by a human trafficker. Yeah, a dude who had been picked up for human trafficking owned that car. And that's a whole other can of worms I'm going to jump into, because I want to know about his employment, because this is very interesting to me. Okay, let me go back to this. The Tennessee Highway Patrol contacted federal authorities, ICE and FBI, but they were reportedly instructed to release him without further action. ICE and FBI in 2022, so this is under Biden, when they catch a person like this who is not only driving like a maniac and putting everybody on the road in jeopardy, and unlicensed, which is also a crime, and 8 people in the car who all live at his house but are not his family, and he's literally going state to state. That's human trafficking. But they were told there wasn't enough evidence. Yeah, no evidence. I asked Grock, why was this man released? Why was he able to go on his way with just a warning? Hello, Spirit. Yeah, you can listen to this as a show that you want to listen to. We've got the votes behind us, but this is a listening show. So, okay. According to Grock, several factors likely contributed to the decision to let Abrego Garcia go despite the red flags. These reflect legal, practical, and systemic issues. First of all, traffic stops are typically handled by state or local law enforcement, but immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility, primarily under ICE. Tennessee Highway Patrol officers could detain Abrego Garcia for traffic violations, but they lacked authority to arrest him for immigration status without federal involvement. Okay, well, they still could have gotten him on these traffic, no license or whatever, expired license, driving like a maniac, putting people in danger. What about that? Thank you. I can't say your name. I'll just call you Ert. Anyway, it's just crazy that they would they lacked authority to arrest him for the traffic violations. Or well, they here, according to Grock, they didn't have any authority for the immigration status, but they definitely should have been caring about everyone else on the road. You, me, and our families, we're on the road too. And we've got this man driving like a maniac with 8 people in the car. Like, what is that? What is that? Reports indicate that ICE was contacted but declined to take custody. This could be due to resource constraints, prioritization of higher threat cases like violent criminals. You know what? A person driving like a maniac on the road is a violent criminal. Sorry, but if you can't follow the rules and you're speeding and you're swerving and you might kill somebody, even if you didn't kill somebody, you are being violent and you are a violent criminal. And this is a man who beat his wife. So I'm going to go with yes, he is violent and he is a criminal. So just saying. So they're saying that policy directives under the Biden administration in 2022 focused ICE efforts on individuals with serious criminal convictions or recent border crossings. So 2019 wasn't recent enough, huh? I don't know. I think that was the first time he came in. I'm not sure what the whole timeline is on that one. Anyway. Grock thinks there's insufficient evidence for immediate arrest. To arrest someone for human trafficking, officers need probable cause, evidence suggesting a crime was committed. While the lack of luggage and crowded vehicle raised suspicions, Abrego Garcia's explanation that he was taking them for construction work for a job, and the passengers' consistent story like they all had the same address, are you kidding me? May not have met the legal threshold for an arrest without further investigation. Yeah, that doesn't pass the smell test even a little bit right there. It's just insane. Driving with an expired license is typically a minor offense. You'll get a citation or a warning. In this case, with an illegal alien with the expired license, the officer issued a warning rather than a citation, possibly due to discretion or lack of aggravating factors like reckless driving. But that's why they pulled him over in the first place, so that doesn't make any sense either. And then when they go back to the human trafficking complexity, human trafficking is a serious crime. Well, it sure is. But proving it requires evidence of exploitation, coercion, or profit motive. By the way, Abrego Garcia had $1,200 in an envelope in his pocket. That sounds like a little cash there to move that situation along. The officer's suspicion alone without immediate evidence like victim statements or contraband likely wasn't enough to justify detention. Okay, there was marijuana. Is that not contraband? There were 8 people with the same address, and victim statements that these people couldn't speak English. So that's another situation. Yeah, the officers didn't want to get involved, too much paperwork. I don't think it even was that, because if you actually look at the video where he gets pulled over, they all talk about there's like 2 officers at least, and they're talking about their suspicions that he is human trafficking. So they know that something's going on. And you know what? Which is worse, reckless driving or forcing yourself on a woman in a department store dressing room? Well, I guess you'll have to answer that, Hood. Is that something that you've done? Force yourself on a woman in a department store dressing room? That sounds pretty nasty. I believe that was an episode of Law and Order. And I'm quite sure that if that would happen in a normal circumstance, that the people who work at that department store would see this going on and would stop it. That's how it happens in the real world. However, reckless driving without a up-to-date license, 8 people in the car, that sounds worse to me, because that sounds like something that actually did happen. So that's why I'm calling BS on your story. ICE operated under guidelines that deprioritize deportations for non-criminal undocumented immigrants or those with minor offenses. I think human trafficking 8 people is not a minor offense. Abrego Garcia had no known criminal convictions at the time, which may explain ICE's decision not to take him in. And then they are blaming an overburdened system, which was overburdened on purpose, wasn't it? Yes, it was overburdened on purpose, because now all the illegal immigrants have stopped coming in, proving that we didn't need to change laws. We needed to change presidents. Going back to vehicle ownership. The vehicle was linked to a convicted human smuggler, Jose Ramon Hernandez Reyes, but Abrego Garcia claimed it belonged to his boss for construction work. Without evidence that Abrego Garcia knew of the owner's criminal history or was actively involved in smuggling, officers may not have had grounds to tie him directly to trafficking at the time. The vehicle's connection to smuggling was noted in Homeland Security records, but this information may not have been immediately available to the officer during the stop. Now, getting into the MS-13 accusation. Abrego Garcia was flagged by Prince George's County Police in 2019 as a suspected MS-13 gang member. And DHS records labeled him a suspect alien. Oh, they used the A word after the 2022 stop. However, these designations may not have been accessible to the Tennessee officer in real time, or they may not have justified detention without a warrant or active investigation. Then again, the release could reflect a broader systemic issue, fragmented communication between local, state, and federal agencies. If federal authorities had flagged Abrego Garcia as a high priority target, the outcome might have been different. I don't know, everything about it seems like crazy to me. And then I asked Grock, and Grock said that my frustration was understandable, and added that an undocumented individual driving with an expired license in a vehicle linked to human smuggling raises obvious red flags, you think? The release seems counterintuitive when human trafficking is a priority for law enforcement. The fact that federal agencies were contacted but chose not to act highlights inconsistencies in immigration enforcement. Policies that deprioritize minor offenses can lead to missed opportunities to address potentially serious offenses. Clearly, gang allegations such as the MS-13 connection, even if unproven, which I think it was proven, adds urgency to the question of why wasn't he detained. Good one, Blacktop. If true, this suggests a failure to act on critical intelligence. And then, just the whole with the vehicle being owned by a convicted smuggler, like, they should have, like, and even Grock says that should have triggered deeper scrutiny, but the stop ended with a warning. This could point to a lack of real-time data sharing or officer discretion that underestimated the situation. Or maybe officers were being paid to look the other way. There's that. Critical perspective, the establishment narrative reflected in some media and DHS statements paints Abrego Garcia as a Maryland dad, wrongly deported, emphasizing his family life and lack of convictions. However, this glosses over troubling details. There's that 2022 stop, the vehicle's ownership, and prior gang allegations. On the flip side, critics like those on X argue he's a dangerous MS-13 member and trafficker. But these claims rely heavily on unverified posts and body cam snippets, not court convictions. That's crazy that they're going to go with court convictions. Like, that's the only way you know if someone's really done something, if they've been convicted in court. Excuse me. I know people who were convicted in court and they didn't even do anything wrong. So there's that. I know good people who got railroaded. And I know, well, I've watched bad people get away with everything. Laura says, so how can the police officer not recognize the MS-13 on his left hand knuckles because the left hand would be at the car window? Good point, Laura. Unfortunately, we are finding out that apparently they just ignore these signs and then pretend that they don't mean anything, when we all know that they do. Okay, so I want to know, who is Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Because I'm thinking he's a lot more important than we're led to believe. I don't think he's just some Maryland man that they're saying was mistakenly deported and really this super good guy and such a help to his community and his family that we need to bring him back because he's super special. I don't buy it. According to the information Grock got, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia is a 29-year-old Salvadoran national who entered the United States illegally in 2011 and settled in Maryland. He has been undocumented since his arrival. He doesn't deserve due process. Did he like do any process when he walked in here? No, he broke in. People who break into our country do not deserve due process. Why is it super easy for them to come in and we got to pay thousands and thousands of dollars in court costs to kick them out? That doesn't seem right to me at all. And it does matter who he is. It really does. If this were, let's say, a doctor who was saving babies in the neonatal unit and he had to break into our country because he was fearing for his life because his baby saving procedures is in his country where they'd rather kill babies instead of save them, he's fighting for his life. Now that guy, we might want to keep him there. There's a live war footage right now on YouTube. Agenda Free TV. Pakistan is at war with India. And they both have nuclear weapons. Oh, I don't think anyone should become a political candidate, RU18. I love my life. I'm not, it's hard enough to be a political pundit. When you're a political candidate, you then put everything on the line, everything you own. And hi, Pling. And another problem with me being a political candidate is I'm a floater. I don't live any one place. I float all around. So usually you have to have an address that, you stick to. So there's a lot of reasons why I will never become a political candidate. Anyway, hello, Sanal. Good to see you, my friend. Okay, so according to Grock, Abrego Garcia has been undocumented since he arrived here in 2011. He was detained by ICE in 2019, but released under a court order prohibiting his deportation to El Salvador due to fears of gang-related persecution, specifically from a gang called Barrio 18, which had, according to Grock and whatever information Grock got, was extorting his family's business. He complied with annual ICE check-ins for 6 years. Okay, but he didn't try to become a citizen. Why is that? He married Jennifer Vasquez Sura, a U.S. citizen, and lives with her and her 3 children, 2 from a previous relationship and 1 which is his child. He worked as a sheet metal apprentice and was involved in construction, sometimes transporting co-workers, which he claimed explained the 2022 traffic stop. He was stopped in Tennessee for speeding and driving with an expired license in a vehicle linked to a convicted human smuggler. The presence of 8 passengers without luggage raised suspicions of human trafficking, but no charges were filed, and he was released with a warning after federal authorities, ICE and FBI, declined to act. Now here's the part that really bothers me, the domestic violence. Jennifer Vasquez Sura sought a protective order alleging physical abuse such as pushing, hair pulling, and slapping. She later stated that they reconciled through counseling and she now supports his return. A second protective order, which surfaced in 2021, didn't have any criminal charges attached to it. So, you know, when these reports, they just gloss over the fact that the woman was being beaten by her husband. And as a woman who has suffered this kind of abuse in my past, I can tell you that the second your husband hits you, you never want to see him again. I don't care. You might be dependent on him for whatever, and you have a child with him, and you pretend that you still love him. But the moment a man raises a hand to you, you hate his guts for the rest of your life. I can tell you this is a fact. And any woman who loves her man who hits her is lying to you. She has whatever reasons for sticking with the dude. But if a man ever hits you, you are not going to think, oh, he did it because it's my fault. That's what some of us might say. That's what they lead us to believe. It's my fault. I deserved it. This woman even said that her husband would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and be slapping her, hitting her. She said hitting, not slapping, hitting. 3 o'clock in the morning. How's that feel? Seriously, you think she loves the man? You think she's happy that she is married to a man who not only would slap her around or hit her at 3 o'clock in the morning and she's sleeping, but also would do these things in front of her children? Any child that witnesses their mother being abused by their father is going to have nightmares. That is not good. So just the fact, it's worse than low class and all. It's despicable. And having been there, I can tell you, it's so despicable. Men who use their strength against the women that they supposedly love. And women stay with these men for all kinds of reasons. And it's pathetic. And I've done it. I'm not any better than any of them. I have been there. And I know, again, when your husband hits you, say what you want. You hate his guts. And you're going to hate his guts for the rest of his life. Or the rest of your life. Or whichever comes first. It's just a fact. There is no kind man who hits his wife. Yeah, E. Jean Carroll. Yeah, that crazy bitch. Are you seriously bringing that out with life? She is a liar. She is a liar and a crazy person. She had a cat named Tits and a dog named Vagina. I mean, seriously? You're going to bring that up like it's real? I can't wait till President Trump does something about that criminal. getting all that money for her lies. It was absolutely despicable. And people like her who lie about rape are some of the most despicable people that there are in the world. Those of us who actually were raped, we don't talk like that. We don't act like that. And I have been treated so badly by men my entire life. Yes, I'm a Trump supporter. So you can say what you want, gamer. And I think you're the one who's no longer intelligent. Go away. It's really sad. It's really sad. Like, did you really want Kamala to be your president, gamer? Seriously? That's who you chose? Or were you waiting for Biden? Really? Come on. These people are too ridiculous to even deal with. Like, I don't need these people on my page if they're going to talk like this. Hi, Catherine. Catherine's a little too feisty for a man to be hitting on her. I would end up in jail because I got to go to sleep at some point. Well, I hear you, Kathy. I am not that I'm not that kind of girl, but I did end up running away from my husband. I tricked him, told him I was going to visit my mama, and I never came back. And I never want to see his face again. I have had to see his face a couple times since then. I did not enjoy it, and have no desire to see the man again. Oh my God, right, Alan? That cackle. Oh my gosh. Like, anybody who says that they voted for her, I'm like, what are you up about? It's crazy. Yeah, right, Sonal. Most everyone on this page is a Trump supporter. And if you're not, you're just here to be a troll. Let's go back to talking about this woman who is crying on television about all her pain and sorrow at the fact that her abusive husband has been deported. What I don't understand is all these Democrats who, who want to believe women and want to, trust a woman says she's been abused, let's take care of her. Why should Jennifer be this upset about her abuser being deported and that she's not going to have a provider in the house anymore? Yes, Catherine, my children did witness that. They absolutely were right there. So, yeah, one of these. Yeah, in front of the kids, Sorry. And I'm never going to not say that it happened, because it happened, and I have the witnesses, and it was the nastiest thing anyone ever did to me, anyone who ever loved me. I was once almost kidnapped right off the street, picked up by two goons who tried to throw me into a car. And you know what? That didn't hurt as much as my husband putting his hands on my throat. That's sad. Again, your husband does that to you, you're going to hate him for the rest of your life. Why would you beg for him to come back? And the only thing that I can think is that he was the breadwinner, so she needed money. But why don't the Democrats say to her, honey, you don't need him? They did a GoFundMe. And how much money is an illegal alien going to make anyway? They don't pay them top dollar because they're illegal aliens, And last I checked, it was actually not legal to hire someone to do work like this. So there's plenty of evidence, magisterial, and I'm reading you the evidence. So if you listen, you'll find out and you will learn. The evidence that he was beating his wife is very clear, as the woman herself is on television, or television, whatever, YouTube you watch, whatever you watch. There's her talking about it, actually being quite upfront about all the slapping around her husband was doing to her, and in front of the baby. I don't know, Spirit, if you had to get rid of Joy, because Joy needs to be schooled, because Joy's stupid if she thinks none of this is proven. It's all proven. Everything I'm telling you is proven, and I'm using Grock as my backup. So, yeah, this girl doesn't lie. Actually, I am the new journalism. I'm really the old journalism. I've been a journalist, a card-carrying journalist. I graduated from Ohio University Scripps School of Journalism in 1987. So I am a real journalist. I was with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette for 18 years. I've written for National, national television. I've written for national magazines. This girl's been all over the place. I'm the real thing. And I believe that my time is now here because I could no longer work for mainstream news. Even the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, which is more or less conservative, they started to, they started to get to me, the way the editors were talking about President Trump. And I was still writing for them back in 2016. I think I finally quit in 2017 because I couldn't take it anymore, all the Trump hatred. It was just like, I don't want to work with you people. So, yeah. A lot of stuff going on. Okay, so I asked Grock, why are they fighting for his return? Democratic lawmakers, immigrant rights advocates, and his legal team. So they want the due process for the dude, right? Claiming it was an administrative error, which actually isn't true. And fears of mistreatment by the rival gang that no longer exists. No, it's a nightmare. Why are they fighting so hard for him? Why do they want him to have due process? I'll tell you why. It seems to me that the Democrats were ushering in all of these illegal aliens in order to bring in a new class of voters who will always vote for them, and they will never have to worry about losing a race to a Republican. I am quite sure that that's what the plan was. And a lot of people are being paid off to make sure that that plan worked out, including the cartels. And we're also learning that our country was the hub of human trafficking in the whole world because of all of this. So, everything, it goes around, it comes around, the fentanyl crisis, the everything, fighting for illegal aliens like Kilmar to have due process is fighting to gum up the works. You don't want that to happen quickly. If you want him to have due process, it means that you just don't want him to leave so fast. That you somehow want to pay for attorneys. You want to make sure that our citizens are put into harm's way because they don't follow rules. Abrego Garcia had no regard for the rules. So why should we have to follow rules to kick him out of our country? That doesn't make any sense to me. I think if you come into somebody's house, you break in, do we need to give you a party on the way out? No, we kick your ass out, right? There might be a boot. No, nobody's like you don't get to break in and then cry foul when you get kicked out. That's not how it happens. Research all the proof of the illegal migrant MS-13 charges and lawful affidavits of truth about his crimes. I don't believe that there are any charges and crimes, being expressed about what he's done. So no, there's no proof that he was charged with any crimes, whatever. And you know what? I don't really care. Just the fact that he was hanging out with MS-13 people tells me that he was one. The fact that he had it on his knuckles tells me that he was one. The fact that Jennifer Vasquez's Sura's ex-husband actually went to court to get his children away from the man that his ex-wife was dating, who was an MS-13 gang member. I mean, it was all, documented. The woman was feared for him. Here's the other thing. The woman feared for her husband being around her children because he was violent. That right there. Why would this woman want him back? She should take her GoFundMe money, which she will need, because I understand that all of her children have disabilities like autism and maybe cerebral palsy, and I don't know, maybe 2 of them have autism, 1 of them cerebral palsy. Anyway, it sounds like a nightmare for her. It sounds like she's a really tough life. And this is her second failed relationship. She said that one of the reasons why she didn't go forth with charges on Kilmore was because she'd been through this before. So she is also somebody who, continues to be abused. Oh, thank you, Ray. Hi, Annie. Hi, Terry. Hi, guys. So she actually has a history of going for men who abuse her. Let the woman get her GoFundMe money and take care of her children. She doesn't need an abusive husband in her life. And why doesn't our country want to protect her? Thank you, Spirit. No, it's not a dating show, exactly. Yeah, so why don't they protect her? And why don't they protect those kids? Because if the kids have already had to see their mother get beaten by their father/stepfather, that's not healthy for anybody. True that, Spirit. Actually, nobody makes me uncomfortable. No, it just, if you're just so rude and you come on my show and you have to say nasty things, you'll get kicked off. If you want to say nice things, but you think you're going to date me, that's not going to happen. So, but you can always say nice things. I appreciate it. I'm a girl who likes a compliment now and then. Hey, want to see some cool boats? Let's take a little break. Let's take a boat break. We got the water taxi going by a really nice yacht. Like, that's a really nice yacht. Holy guacamole, that's a nice yacht. Those people are chilling. What's the name? Raw. Or RFW, I can't tell. My eyes aren't that good. Anyway. Poof, Phil. Yes, we don't live in a democracy, by the way. We live in a constitutional republic. And we do respect the rule of law. And no one's above the law. Not these activist judges. And not these illegal aliens who think they can break in and take whatever they want and get all their free goodies from our government, from our taxpayers. That would be you and me. And then turn around, get kicked out, and then claim they need due process on the way out. Yeah, cry me a river. Cry me a river. Cry me a river. Yeah, that water taxi's always dropping off darling. Unforeseen places. All right, anyway. Let's get back to my little rant about the illegal aliens, being treated as if they deserve the good life. I was just talking to my friend Captain Jerry earlier today, and I was like, I think every American over the age of 70 should have everything they ever need. They shouldn't have to pay for rent. They shouldn't have to worry about money, or they should have enough money to pay people around them to take care of them or whatever. But they should be able to travel. They should be able to do what they want. They should have wonderful lives. And that's what I think, especially today's older Americans. Because and I'm going to add myself, I'm not over 70, but I will be 60 in November. But I'm just saying, people my parents' age, and my parents passed away, but a lot of people's parents are still alive. The greatest, the boomers and the greatest generation, people who are living into their 90s and even 100. Those people should be taken care of so well by everybody. If they don't have family, then there should just be funding for them always. I have a feeling like this is going to be the greatest time to be elderly in America. I'm really looking forward to it. And President Trump has promised that we are all going to be wealthy soon. And I got to say, promises made, promises kept. So far, he's been doing great. There are some things that we're still waiting to see and find out. And every day it's something new. So Yeah, you're 71. Terry, you should not have to work another day in your life. You should not have any worries. That's my wish for everybody at least over the age of 70 in America. Because you have been through so much. You have been ripped off. You have been scammed. You have been treated like dirt. Your tax dollars have been frittered away by politicians. And I mean, these people who just don't give a crap about anything. Not even you and not even themselves. All right, Spirit, glad you were here. Keep an eye on that troll. Okay, let's see. Was there anything else I wanted to read to you from this? I think oh, okay. I asked Grock about the electoral strategy. Hi, Deborah. Love my over 70s. You guys are the treasure of our country. With polls showing 50% of Americans support Abrego Garcia's return. Now, this can't be true. Do you really think that 50% of Americans want this dude to come back to our country? I don't believe that. Not for a second. Democrats see his case as a way to galvanize voters, particularly Latino and progressive communities, ahead of future elections. Okay, that can't be true either, because Latinos who come to this country legally and did all the right things, guess what? They hate illegal immigrants. They hate them because they make everybody look bad. So, yeah. Grock is my journalist. He's my journalist helper, Thomas. So you can say what you want about him. I don't trust everything that he says, but that's why I'm bringing this out about Grock, because I want you guys to hear the kinds of things that Grock says and the discussions that we have, because it is very interesting. And he does have access to all this information. So it's kind of like I can spar with a liberal, but there are no feelings involved because it's Grock. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about, Ghost, but yes, if you don't stand up for liberty and what's right, then they will come after you too at some point. Yeah, I don't know what Ghost is talking about, but anyway. Most everybody on here right now really loves this country. We want the best for it. Let's see. The thing that really bothered me the most was Abrego Garcia's beating his wife. That right there is the worst thing I can think of. Yes, if you are an American citizen, you definitely should have due process. But if you're a criminal who broke into our country, we don't owe you a damn thing. We've already given you free money. We've already given you luxury hotel rooms. We've already given you driver's licenses. In Maryland, you can actually vote. We've given you illegal aliens so much when you come into our country. Place to live, education, medical, things that our homeless veterans only wish that they could have. We've given you enough. We don't have to give you due process. We don't. And we're not going to, so bye, cry harder. Yeah, how do you know that the illegal aliens pay taxes? How do you know? I don't think they do. Because they don't respect our laws. That's what they've done. They've broken into our country. Abrego Garcia was speeding. He didn't have an up-to-date license. He's virtually trafficking people. Oh, right. I wanted to talk about this is a situation about his job that really, really bothered me. Oh, and Grock also backed me up on this one. I argued that a man who abuses his wife even once is not a good person and is likely to repeat the behavior. This aligns with the research on domestic violence. The National Institute of Justice notes that perpetrators of intimate partner violence often recidivate, with 20 to 30% of cases involving repeat incidents within a year. The fact that a second protective order was sought suggests a pattern despite Jennifer's reconciliation claims. While advocates highlight Abrego Garcia's lack of criminal convictions, the protective orders indicate behavior that conflicts with the image of a hard-working family man. Hi, Tammy. Good to see you. Yeah, President Trump signed in 2018 about the new ID driver's license. This is true. Check your driver's license, see if it has a star on it. I believe that some states missed that cutoff. I remember this in 2018 very well because Florida was smart and my driver's license does actually have the star on it. They adopted Real ID back when they should have. A state like Pennsylvania, where I came from, did not do it on time. So if you're from Pennsylvania, you might not have that star. Being an illegal immigrant is a criminal offense. It actually is. So you are breaking laws when you come into our country. You're not allowed to just break in. It's not good. Anyway, okay, so Grock says these incidents do cast doubt on his suitability as a role model or stable partner, regardless of his employment or immigration status. Advocates, including Democratic lawmakers and groups like CASA, emphasize Abrego Garcia's family ties to argue against his deportation, focusing on his role as a provider and his integration into the community. Vasquez Sura, Jennifer's support, and the absence of criminal charges allow them to downplay the abuse allegations, framing them as private matters resolved through counseling. BS. This narrative is strategic, aiming to humanize him and counter the Trump administration's portrayal of him as a dangerous MS-13 member. However, as I pointed out, the domestic violence history complicates this portrayal and raises questions about whether his return prioritizes family unity over safety. I think absolutely a man who beats his wife should never be allowed around her ever again, especially, like I said, in front of his children. It is for me to judge Brad. I am the victim of domestic violence, and I know exactly what happens when your husband puts his hands on you. He's going to do it again. If a husband hits you once, he's going to do it again. They all do. That's how husbands behave. The beating kind, anyway. They do it once, they will do it again. And any woman who lets her children be around a man who abuses her is being abusive to her own children. So I do know. And Jennifer actually talked about it herself. So it's true, and it is a fact, and you can look it up for yourself. The woman talked about how her husband would wake up at 3 a.m. and be hitting her. And she did that. She talked about it more than once. So, and I'm not playing the victim. I am a victim of domestic violence. I don't want to be a victim. And I stopped being a victim the day I ran away from my abusive husband. So I'm not a victim anymore. But I was. And I'll admit, I got tricked by a couple of men who treated me badly until I decided not to take it anymore. And it is my hope that poor Jennifer would stop begging for them to send back her abusive husband, because I'm pretty sure after all of this, he's not going to get any better. Actually, yes, we did go to court, so it was called a divorce. Yes, I have had some pretty bad situations. I've had to file PFAs. I've been there. I've done that. And actually, my second abusive partner killed himself long after I ran away from him. But yeah, I've been through it more than once, and I understand Jennifer. And it's very hard for me to reconcile somebody who was abused like this and then is begging for her husband to come back. I have to wonder why. And And if she really thinks that he's a great breadwinner, well, that's also kind of questionable because he's an illegal alien. So how good of a breadwinner could he be? I don't have to do anything that you say, Ghost. You're not my dog. Now, I was wondering about Abrego Garcia's work. It was reported that he was a sheet metal apprentice in the construction industry in Maryland, often transporting coworkers to job sites. He had claimed that this explained the 2022 traffic stop. Sheet metal workers install and maintain HVAC systems, roofing, and other metal structures, a skilled trade requiring training, but not always formal certification. Abrego Garcia was reportedly affiliated with a construction union, which suggests that he worked for a legitimate employer, possibly through informal arrangements given his undocumented status. So thank you, Elliot. Yes, I'm not a liar. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, yes, you don't have to agree with me, but I'm not a liar. So, anyway. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median annual wage for a sheet metal worker in Maryland in 2024 was approximately $58,000, or about $28 per hour. Apprentices typically earn 50 to 75% of a journeyman's wage, so Abrego Garcia likely earned $15 to $21 per hour, depending on his experience and union status. Unionized workers often receive benefits like health insurance or pension contributions, but it's unclear if Abrego Garcia accessed these due to his immigration status. Undocumented worker pay studies, such as one from the Center for Immigration Studies, show undocumented workers in construction often earn 10 to 20% less than their documented counterparts for similar roles, due to employers exploiting their legal vulnerabilities. If Abrego Garcia was paid under the table or through informal channels, his wages could have been as low as $12 to $15 an hour, though union involvement might have ensured closer to standard pay. Now then I gotta wonder, could an American citizen have done his job? Yes. Sheet metal work is a trade accessible to U.S. citizens and legal residents. The construction industry in Maryland employs thousands of citizens in similar roles, and apprenticeship programs are open to anyone meeting basic requirements like a high school diploma, a GED, and physical fitness. The U.S. construction industry has faced labor shortages, with a 2024 Associated Builders and Contractors report estimating a need for 500,000 additional workers nationwide. You know what that means, and there's going to be way, way more jobs. Employers often hire undocumented workers to fill gaps, especially for lower skilled or apprentice roles, and they may accept lower wages and are less likely to report labor violations, so they actually get abused. Now, my concern about job displacement is obviously valid. A U.S. citizen could have filled Abrego Garcia's role, particularly in a unionized setting where training is provided. The Economic Policy Institute notes that undocumented workers in construction can depress wages for native-born workers by 1 to 2% in some markets, though the overall economic impact is debated. Wondering if he was paid less because he was undocumented? Well, likely, to some extent. As noted, undocumented workers are often paid less due to their lack of legal protections. Employers may offer substandard wages and avoid overtime pay, knowing workers like Abrego Garcia are less likely to complain to authorities. If he was paid through a union, his wages were likely closer to industry standards, but non-union employers frequently exploit undocumented labor. Posts on X and some reports suggest he earned a decent living, enough to support his family, but this could still mean below market rates for a citizen doing the same work. Now, their attempt to portray Abrego Garcia as a stable family man ignores the gravity of the domestic violence allegations. Even if reconciled, the incidents, especially in front of children, undermine his defender's narrative. Because, of course, a single act of abuse marks someone as unfit is a strong moral stance, but advocates argue his lack of convictions and Jennifer's support mitigate this. The pattern of protective orders suggests a risk of recurrence, challenging the rosy picture painted by his supporters. That's what I'm getting at, Thomas. I'm blaming the employers right now. Definitely, definitely. This is a problem that the employer should have to take some kind of responsibility, especially for putting a man without a valid driver's license in the driver's seat and telling him to transport 8 people across the country. What employer does that? That doesn't seem right. He was driving with an expired Maryland limited term temporary license. Okay, that explains the license thing. I mean, this makes me think that the sheet metal, the who hired him? It was a university, I believe, that hired him. I have that somewhere here. Let me find. Oh, and just so you know, that drivers who disregard rules often manifest in hit and run behavior. In 2023, the CGO notes that unlicensed, undocumented drivers are more likely to flee accident scenes due to fear of deportation, especially in serious crashes. So there's that. In states without licensing for undocumented immigrants, hit and run rates are higher as drivers lack insurance or legal protections. States like California, which grant licenses, report reduced hit and run incidents after licensing reform, suggesting legal access could mitigate reckless behavior. Well, how about they just go? The NHTSA reported more than 42,514 traffic fatalities in the U.S. in 2023. If 14.6% of fatalities in high immigrant states are caused by unlicensed drivers, per report, and assuming undocumented immigrants are a proportional subset, like 3.5% of the population, they might contribute to 500 to 1,000 fatalities annually nationwide. Now, that's just a rough estimate, as not all unlicensed drivers are undocumented, and reckless driving isn't always distinguished. However, I know people who were affected by illegal aliens crashing into their cars, although my cousin, she didn't die, but her car was totaled and she had to pay everything for it herself. So there's that. So let's go back to the employer thing. Okay. Your questions about Kilmar Abrego Garcia's driving for his job, whether his employer required him to drive, and whether the employer should be held liable for allowing an undocumented immigrant with an expired license to operate a vehicle, are astute and point to critical issues of accountability in employment and immigration enforcement. You've emphasized his dangerous driving, speeding, expired license from the 2022 Tennessee traffic stop, his disregard for laws, and the broader risks posed by undocumented immigrants driving recklessly. So thinking about his employment context and the likelihood of employer requirements and the potential liability of his employer while integrating my concerns about his driving violations and their implications. Based on that 2022 traffic stop, Abrego Garcia was stopped for speeding, driving a vehicle with 8 passengers, which he claimed were co-workers traveling for construction work. He stated the vehicle belonged to his boss, suggesting that that was part of his job. Hi, Julie. There's no direct evidence, like an employment contract, confirming his employer explicitly required him to drive because they didn't do an investigation, you see. But his claim that the passengers were co-workers and the vehicle was owned by his boss, later linked to a convicted human smuggler, Jose Ramon Hernandez Reyes, strongly suggests driving was part of his job. Construction employers often expect workers, especially apprentices, to travel to sites, sometimes providing vehicles or coordinating transfer. Abrego Garcia was likely driving for his job, as he was transporting co-workers in a vehicle tied to his employer or a related figure, consistent with construction industry practices. In construction, employers frequently require workers to travel to job sites, particularly for out-of-state projects. Apprentices like Abrego Garcia may be tasked with driving co-workers, especially if they're part of a crew. The vehicle's registration to a smuggler complicates this, you think? As it's unclear whether the boss was a direct employer or a third party, like a subcontractor. Abrego Garcia's statement that the passengers were co-workers implies that the trip was work-related, likely at the direction of an employer or a supervisor. If the vehicle was provided by his boss, it suggests the employer either required or facilitated his driving. Now, an employer requiring him to drive, knowing that he didn't have an up-to-date license, would show negligence, as Maryland law requires valid licensure for work-related driving. 100%. Hey, Catherine. No explicit document states that his employer required driving, but of course those circumstances imply that it was expected or it was an assigned duty. The employer likely knew or should have known about his expired license given his undocumented status. So I'm wondering, should the employer be held liable? And Grock says that this question is critical because it touches on workplace accountability, immigration law, and public safety. Employers can be liable if they hire or allow an employee to perform duties like driving, knowing that they're unqualified or unlicensed, because this leads to harm. In Tennessee, where the stop occurred, negligent supervision claims require proof that the employer knew or should have known the employee posed a risk. He was driving illegally. Abrego Garcia's expired license and undocumented status were likely known to his employer, especially if he was hired informally or through a subcontractor. Allowing him to drive a company vehicle or one tied to a smuggler could constitute negligence, particularly if the employer failed to verify his licensure. Immigration Reform and Control Act states that employers are required to verify employees' work authorization by a Form I-9. Hiring an undocumented worker like Abrego Garcia violates federal law with penalties, including fines from more than $500 to more than $4,500 per worker, or criminal charges for knowing violations. If his employer hired him without documentation, they're already liable under this act. OSHA and state labor laws require employers to ensure safe working conditions, including for driving-related tasks. Assigning an unlicensed worker to drive could breach these standards, especially if it endangers others. He had 8 people in the car, and what about everyone else on the road? You only have to live in an area if you are running for U.S. House or U.S. Senate on the day of the election. Sorry, it's not. I'm not running for office. Are you kidding? You know how much money that costs? I don't have anything. I literally don't have anything. So, yeah, it's very expensive to run for office, by the way, like super expensive. And someone like me with nothing, I'd have to have people with really deep pockets. And if you've got like hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions, then we could talk, but I'm pretty sure you don't. So it's not going to happen. So about those human trafficking concerns, the vehicle's registration to a convicted smuggler and the suspicious circumstances, like 8 passengers, no luggage, suggest possible trafficking if the employer was complicit or negligent in allowing such activities. By providing the vehicle, they could face serious liability under federal anti-trafficking laws, which is a penalty of up to 7 years. However, no trafficking charges were filed and the officer released Abrego Garcia after federal authorities declined to act, suggesting insufficient evidence at the time. I think it's suggesting something else as well. Should the employer be liable? Yes, of course, they should face scrutiny for hiring an undocumented worker if they failed to verify his work authorization. This violated the IRCA. Regardless of his driving. Allowing unlicensed driving. If they required or permitted him to drive with an expired license, they were negligent, especially given the work-related nature of the trip. This endangered public safety as evidenced by his speeding. The vehicle's tie to a smuggler also raises questions about the employer's due diligence. If they knowingly provided or leased a vehicle linked to criminal activity, they could be liable for facilitating illegal acts. However, there was no crash or injuries, and civil liability is harder to pursue. Negligence claims typically require tangible harm, but the risk was clear. The officer's decision to issue a warning and federal authorities' inaction meant no immediate investigation into the employer. Without charges against Abrego Garcia, the employer faced no scrutiny. If Abrego Garcia worked for a subcontractor or under-the-table arrangement, tracing liability to a specific employer is difficult. The boss, potentially the human smuggler, may not be a formal employer, complicating accountability. So, lack of consequences for the employer, despite the smuggler-linked vehicle and trafficking suspicions, likely feels like another systemic failure, especially when Americans are harmed by similar incidents. So, there we go. Do you have any questions? But this is the reason that Americans don't want people like this in our country. So, okay, I look like a fish now. Great, Kev. These are the same people who call everybody racist. It's sad. Anyway, yeah, thank you for hiding that one. Yeah, it is unlawfully ridiculous. And I am so excited about everything that President Trump is doing to get these horrible people out of our country. And Abrego Garcia, a man who abused his wife in front of his children, is a horrible person. Yeah. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm all talked out, but I will see you on the next Beach Report. So have a wonderful rest of your day. And ciao for now.